Every once in a while, we see stories of parents leaving their children alone for an extended period of time. Now, these stories are heartbreaking. Most recently in Detroit, there was a situation of a mother who had abandoned her children, left them in the home alone for allegedly since 2020 or 2021. And I am not sure how that's possible. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and I'm speaking as someone who is also raising children. I'm not speaking from a place of having it all figured out. No one does. There's no book that you can read. There's no video that you can watch of someone who could say, I figured it all out. Here, go and do these things. All children are unique and all situations are unique. And so I'm speaking as someone who is also on the journey. And what I'll say is this. It is not uncommon for people to say, what is my purpose? What is my role on this earth? What am I called to do? Or I want to make a difference. I want to have an impact. And I think one of the most revolutionary things that a person can do is to raise healthy children who understand who they are, who understand that they are valuable no matter what, and who are poised to positively contribute to society. That is the most revolutionary thing that you can do. And that means that during our season of parenting or during seasons when we are a caregiver, that has to be the primary focus. Now, this doesn't mean that we can't have things that we enjoy. In fact, our children are best served when they see their parents with their own passions. But those passions cannot come at the expense of our children. Our children are the number one and the most important thing. And this is certainly not an individual job. I think one of the problems in our society is that you see people, you see parents, you see caregivers who are under-resourced. They are doing it all on their own. And when I say under-resourced, I'm not just talking about finances. I'm talking about the community that comes alongside to support parents who are caring for children. I think that when you see under-resourced parents, that is a recipe for disaster. But unfortunately, we have a system in the United States that's hyper-individual. We have a system where if certain parents ask for help, they are demonized, and their request for help is seen as somehow suggesting that they should not have their children. And so you have a lot of parents who are even afraid to ask for help, right? You have families who are disconnected. They could be disconnected because one parent lives in one state, another parent lives in the other state, or the extended family is not in the same state. And so you see a lot of parents who are having to do it alone. Now, I don't know the situation with this parent, and nothing absolves this parent of walking away from their children and leaving their children alone. Nothing can make that okay in my book. But what I am saying is that we can't underestimate the role of community when it comes to raising healthy children. There's a reason there's a quote that says in African proverbs that says it takes a whole, as in healthy, village to raise a child, because children and the adults who love them are best served when they are situated inside of community. That community could come via the church, it could come via school, it could come via, just the community in which they live. But children and parents are best served when they are inside of community, and we can't underestimate that. The children who were left alone in Detroit, I wonder, where was the extended family? Where was the school system? How come the people who knew this person, I'm sure they knew this person had children, like what were they saying? How do you interface with people and they're not asking about the kids, asking to see the kids? I know for people who know me, they're always asking about, my children, even my adult son. And so I wonder, where was the community and how this happened, and no one saw it. No one took steps, and we don't know what they did, but I just wonder how it went on for so long. Although it doesn't seem like it based on our cultural norms, there is really no greater role than raising children. Now, there are people who don't agree, and there are people who say, I'm not going to have children for this reason, and I get that and I respect it. But if you have children, that is a responsibility, but it's also an opportunity. And so on social media, you don't always see the day the day in and the day out of raising children. There are high moments, there are low moments, there are lots of moments that you wouldn't even want to publicize. And we don't see that. You don't see parents walking the red carpet because they've done a good job of parenting. You don't see that either. But that doesn't mean that parenting isn't noble. It doesn't mean that it isn't important work. It doesn't mean that when you see parents and caregivers or grandparents raising their children, that if there's something that you can do to add capacity or to help, that you don't step up and try to do it. Now, I get that some people will say, well, you know, it takes a lot to raise children. It takes a lot financially. And so some parents, they are working. But in some of these situations where we've seen parents leave their children for an extended period of time, it's not about them working, right? It's about, I think that there's a temptation for some people, especially if they've been raising children, to get to a point where they say, I've been sacrificing forever. I've been putting other people first, and I want me time. You know, it's time for me to have some joy. It's time for me to have some happiness. And what I'll say about that is happiness can't come at the expense of your children. And that mindset of I deserve it, it can lead to long-term consequences and long-term problems for your children. You know, I remember when we were young, my mom would say, you all aren't going to be kids forever. You know, one day you're going to grow up. And so I think when it comes to parenting and caregiving, we have to remember that it's seasonal. There are seasons of sacrifice. And yes, it is a great sacrifice, but it's not going to last forever. And so when we have these opportunities and these moments to invest in children, even though it's hard, I get it's super, super hard. I get all of that. But I want us to remember that this is an opportunity, it's a responsibility, and there's going to come a point where our children are going to be adults. And how they relate to us when they are adults is sometimes correlated to how we related to them when they were children, right? And so when you see sometimes parental estrangement, I saw an article about parental or adults who have estranged or non-existent relationship with their parents. And one of the things this article said is oftentimes it's because the parents first abandoned the children or the adult children when those adult children were younger. So there is a correlation, there is a connection. All I'm saying is that the North Star has to be raising healthy children, whether those children belong to you or not, because we also can't have a society where you have people who are like, my kids are good, but are not thinking about how to support another parent in the community. To the extent that they have the capacity. So, you know, that's all I'll say for now. If you like this content, please be sure to subscribe and also leave a positive comment.